Hi, and welcome to Care for Creatives Community Conversations. Care for Creatives is a partnership between George Washington University and the DC Creative Affairs Office. This program is focused on two things: providing the community with conversations about mental health and creatives, and offering pay-what-you-can therapy through the Community Counseling Services Center on Foggy Bottom's campus of GW. Today's guest is author, therapist, and district creative host, Cherise Mattheson. I'm so excited to meet you today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
So can you tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing now, and maybe we'll get to the journey that brought you to this point?
Absolutely. So the work that I'm doing now is just spreading the message about the importance of managing and maintaining our mental health and wellness. I really took this mission full throttle during the pandemic because I saw so many people, myself included, being impacted by anxiety and stress and depression for that time period. And so I have authored a couple of books that help people to navigate through their mental health journey. One is a coloring book, and I enjoyed that the most because it gives people an opportunity to do something physical that ultimately impacts their mental health that's not exercise.
Yeah. No, I love that because that's the somatic experiencing, right? When you're actually doing something and connecting, and coloring book sounds amazing.
Absolutely. And I got to coloring through my own experience, some difficulties that I was navigating in my co-parenting relationship, which is also can be a source of stress as well as just adulting, finances. So I made this specifically for adults. It's an adult coloring book. And really what it does is just allows you to focus on what's on the page. The coloring book also has affirmations. The title is Self-Care and Flowers. And it's really about giving yourself the flowers that you need and deserve. And so each page has a different positive affirmation that you can really just focus on and determine what you want that to look like based on the colors that you select.
Yeah, that sounds right on track with helping people navigate things and coloring.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go in that direction? Was it kind of your creative outlet?
Yeah, because I've found that, you know, when I was younger, still young, just younger. I was involved in a lot of things through school, whether it was on a step team or on a cheerleading team or a dance team. And, you know, as you get into adult life, those opportunities to express yourself creatively, unless you pursue that as a career, kind of go away with your responsibility. So I found that I feel the best when I'm doing things that allow me to express myself creatively. And so that's really how it came about. I'm not, I wouldn't consider myself to be an artist, so I'm somebody who does need the lines to draw outside of, but it gave me the opportunity to, you know, develop the artist within me, because we all have artistry within us, and we're all artists in our own special ways. And I just found that I felt so good after coloring. And it also showed me a few things about myself that I can work on, because when I felt like I picked the wrong color, I noticed that I judged myself a little bit, like, oh, well, maybe you could have picked green right here and you picked red. And it gave me an opportunity to say, like, it's not that serious. This is your own creative project. It can be whatever colors. If you want the leaves to be red, the leaves can be red, and it's okay.
Yeah, I love that. It's not that serious. And
it's not.
Right.
A lot of things aren't.
Right. And also having it be just your creative outlet. Because I think that one of the things that happens for people around the age of, like, I think between 10 and 13 is they start to get that internalized, either I'm a good artist idea or I'm not a good artist idea. Right. And after that point, we either lean into using our creativity in that way,
or we shy.
Yeah, we lean away from it.
Yeah.
And so having a coloring book that has prompts and lines to color within is a way to tap into that in maybe a safer way.
Yeah, or without too. It's like a judgment free. If you want to go outside of the lines, no one is here to judge. There's no right or wrong with however you decide to express yourself. And I didn't even realize how much time had passed because I'm just, you know, coloring away. I had music. I actually have turned it into an event, which is called Color Me Calm. And so I had a group of women to come. Some were new moms, postpartum, their first time kind of getting out after delivery, and we put on some 90s R&B, which is my favorite genre of music.
Excellent,
and it was just like a calming coloring experience. We had snacks and mocktails for some, cocktails for others, and it was just a good time to just relax and color.
Wow, that seems like such an amazing opportunity for people in the community to just come in and engage in this calming and relaxing experience with coloring.
Absolutely.
That's really exciting. Do you have more of those kinds of things planned or others that you've done?
So yes, I actually do have more planned and more to come. It's so funny, I created the book for adults and I'm always hearing like, well, is there a children's version? And so I was blessed with the opportunity to participate in Mayor Bowser's Art All Night. And so one of the things that we did was a coloring installation for families. So although the book is geared towards adults, there was like a mommy and me moment. There were people who were out on a date night and they just kind of came to the table. So there are opportunities to, even though it's geared towards adults, to incorporate families, significant others, and children as well.
Yeah. Well, so I have a slightly different direction of a question that I want to ask you, which is, you know, you are a therapist.
Yes.
And you are trained as a therapist. And what do you think your journey was like that led you to come to this place of wanting to be a therapist? Because I think the things that draw us to this field are all unique to each of us.
Yeah, my story is very, very unique. So unique that I actually wrote a book about that story as well.
Excellent.
But the name of that book is The Dream Vision Reality Guide. And so very brief encapsulation of it. I actually wanted to major in communications and broadcast journalism. And so when I went to the career counselor and shared my aspirations, I was met with what was a projection, I understand now, of her own personal fears, because she explained to me that in the DC market it was very competitive and I probably wouldn't get a job, so I should probably do something that was more safe. And as an 18-year-old freshman, I'm like, the goal of being here in the first place is to get a job, and you're telling me I can't get a job. Well, what are the other options? She's like, well, what else do you like to do? And I'm like, I like to help people. So she's like, have you heard of social work? Which I hadn't. And that's how I ended up in the field.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story, but it came full circle because I actually did end up transitioning out of health and human services into broadcasting, and had and have a very successful radio career. So I share that to say that sometimes, you know, people can interrupt your journey inadvertently and you still land exactly where you're supposed to be. And so now I tell people I live a double life because I have this mental health and wellness career and now a company, and then I also have the broadcast journalism, which has led me to writing books and having some amazing interviews with very influential people and having this conversation with you today as well.
Yeah, it's amazing how our life path kind of finds its way.
Absolutely. And were there situations in my life that led me to want to be more of a helper? You know, being somebody who was on the other end of that spectrum, needing help, growing up in a low-income environment, receiving, you know, subsidies and free lunch and things of that nature. So yes, all of those things played a part in it. And then there's one movie that's my favorite movie of all time. It's called Lean on Me. And in that movie, the school social worker was so important in one of the teen parents being able to graduate from high school. So that had an imprint on me as well. And I did have some time working in the school system as a social worker.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It is amazing the power of movies.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And that movie is like the late 80s maybe when it came out, but it still is just, it's such a great story about how adults and educators and social workers have a huge impact on the lives of the students and the children that they serve. So although I was a little misguided, I'm grateful for that experience because it got me to where I am today.
Yeah, and it's more evidence, right, of the creativity, movies, coloring, art, music, all of these different expressions and outlets not only impact our mental health, but they can have an impact on other people's mental health as well when we allow ourselves to go in and experience that. Which leads me to another question, which is about your podcast?
Yes.
Yeah. Can maybe tell me more about that and this kind of creative outlet that you have?
So I get so excited to hear and learn about the many creative projects that people are doing around the city, particularly from DC natives who have made a conscious decision to remain here as their home and to serve the city that served them. And so it's my honor to share those stories of creatives, and that's what the show is. The District Creatives Radio Show is an opportunity for people who live in, work in, or serve the district or surrounding communities to talk about the work that they do. And it came out of my desire to share my own creative projects. And you know, I've had great opportunities, but I know what it feels like to be working very hard and to not feel seen, or to have people not know that you have this amazing thing. So for the past 5 years, I've shared the stories of hundreds of creatives right here in the district, from fashion designers, entertainers, authors, entrepreneurs, spice store owners, makeup artists. And so I take great pride in having the voice, the space, and the opportunity to share those stories.
Yeah, wow. It seems it's such a powerful experience to hear someone else's story.
Absolutely.
We learn, our brains learn things better when we hear it from a story.
And I'm always so engaged. I feel so blessed that I have an expansive network. So a lot of the people who are guests on the show, I have professional and personal relationships with, and yet and still I may know what they do and know their amazing stories, and when we're on the microphone I'm like, that is amazing, that's so phenomenal that you did that. Because I just think, you know, someone said something to me the other day. I was telling them I put a lot of pressure on myself, and they were like, do you know how many people have an idea to do something and they never do it? So, you know, that's people powerful. Who bring their ideas to fruition, their dreams to reality, deserve to be celebrated. And so it's an opportunity for me to do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's also a lot, right? It sounds like you have a lot on your plate.
I do.
Cherise, how do you manage dealing with all these things, and what do you do for your own self-care?
Yeah, well, I practice what I preach. I wrote a book. It's so funny. I feel like every conversation is like, I wrote a book, but I did.
Well, you've written so many. You are prolific.
Yes. So my book, Sand, Sun, and Self-Care, is birthed out of my own experience. Going back to when I was working in child welfare, it was one of the most stressful and traumatic jobs that I've ever had, helping children navigate being in difficult, dangerous, and harmful situations. And one time I had gotten exhaustion, which I kind of thought was like very Hollywood, like people get exhaustion, like what is that? Until I was in the hospital, you know, with the monitor, and I'm hooked up to things and machines are beeping, and I was looking around and I'm like, I'm used to taking my clients to hospitals, and now here I am in this hospital. And I made a commitment to myself that I would never not take care of myself. And what not taking care of myself looked like for me was staying up and working until 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, and then getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and doing all of my activities, or beating myself up because the laundry wasn't done, so forcing myself to do it when I know I probably should have taken a nap. And so that's how the book Sand, Sun, and Self-Care was birthed. I went on a women's retreat to Jamaica solo. I took a solo trip, and while I was there enjoying the sand and the sun and my own personal self-care, I wrote a list of 50 things that I could do to continue this, and that's what the book is about. So I practice what I preach. It's very important to me to be authentic in my messaging, and so I am currently in therapy. I don't tell people to go and do something that I haven't done or don't currently do, and so that's what it looks like for me. It's like, you know how people say, I'm a product of the product? I'm a product of the product. I make it my business to take care of myself, and I feel that my messaging permeates at a higher rate and level because you can feel that coming through me.
Yeah, it's genuine. It's your experience that you're sharing, and I feel like people, and I'm guessing you probably agree with me, like people respond to genuineness.
They do,
so
and they
much
can
more.
feel it too. Like, you know, I think as you get older, it's easier to navigate what's being fabricated and what's authentic. You sharpen that ability. So absolutely.
You have all of these projects that you're doing. You have the books, you have the in-person events, and you know, a lot of people would look at what you're doing and look at the work you're doing and say, like, how do I do that, right? What advice would you give to anyone who's kind of trying to figure out how to navigate all of this themselves?
So it's funny that you asked that question, because I shared recently on Instagram, which I engage my audience in that way sometimes, that at the top of every month I do something that's called a brain dump. And it's literally just getting everything out of my brain onto a piece of paper. That could be the biggest idea, like I want to write a book, to something as tedious as I need to schedule a dentist appointment. I find that it's hard to really vision and do what's required to bring something to life if you have a lot of clutter going on in your mind. I also feel like that about your space too, but we can probably talk about that on another episode. But in your mind, you have to get all these things out to make sense of it. So I like to extract to see what's happening in here and put it on paper, and then from there to develop a plan. So that's kind of a starting point for me. It's like, let me fully flesh out what the vision looks like, get clear on it, and then from there come up with some actionable steps. And I'm also someone who's not afraid to reach out and ask for help. When I was in my process of writing a book, I reached out to others who had done it before. They can either tell me this is how you do it, or they can either tell me I'm not telling you how you do it, and then I'll go on to the next resource. So it's really just asking questions, leaning on your network for support, and really clearing out your vision by organizing your thoughts. You know, we live in our own brains, in our own minds, but I would venture, if I could jump into the minds of some other people, that it would be a similar space, because there's just so much information that we're processing, like you said, responsibilities that we have. So that's really the best way for me, and advice that I would give to others.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And getting your mind uncluttered is probably one of the hardest and most important things that we could do.
Absolutely. And another reason why I do it routinely, because the amount of information that we take in 24 hours. So when you think about 30 days, the amount of information that we've taken in, had to process, things that we had to do. And so that's important to me also for tracking, because when you're moving fast and you have a lot of projects, it can seem that you're not achieving. Well, at least that was my experience. I'm a bit of like a perfectionist, a little bit of an overachiever. So that helped me to track, to say, hey, you are doing things from, you know, July 1st to July 31st, you've done X, Y, and Z as evidence that you crossed them off when you did your brain dump exercise.
Well, I have one more question that I wanted to ask you about, because you've been now working with the creative community here in DC for a few years, and hearing stories and talking to them about mental health, and being a really staunch advocate for mental health in the creative community. And I guess I'm wondering what you've seen happening for people in the creative community, and challenges they're facing, or just themes of experiences that they're having.
Yeah, so that's one of the questions that I think sometimes when people come on the show, they're blindsided by the question around mental health and self-care. But I ask people often, especially for creatives who are also entrepreneurs, creative entrepreneurs, right? Because entrepreneurship comes with its own set of stressors, and so when you pair that with a creative pursuit, it can lead to anxiety and stress, and you know, all the physical. So when I ask that question, people are a little bit like, what do I do? Or am I doing anything? Or they say, I'm not doing anything and I need to do a better job. Do you have resources? So it just creates a conversation. But I would say the one theme that I see within the creative economy is the impact on the admin side of creativity, and how it impacts their performance, which impacts how they feel about the work that they're doing. So, you know, like artists, they like to paint, singers, they like to sing. Artists and painters need to send out an invoice also if they want to get paid, right?
Right.
So it's balancing, it's the balancing act, it's the work-life balance. But what I will say that people are so open to understanding more about mental health, to trying therapy for the first time. I think within the last year, I have been in so many conversations with people who are saying, I tried therapy for the first time, or I'm going to my first therapy appointment this evening. And I'm always encouraging and celebrating people when they do that, because I just am such a firm believer in therapy being able to help you to navigate things that you've experienced in the past and help you to better navigate things that you will experience in the future.
Absolutely. I think if I can just talk about me for 1 second,
Yes,
I think the point of this Care for Creatives program is that, really. It's to get people to recognize that there's therapy out there, and that even if sometimes cost is a prohibitive factor for people, and just making it more accessible, I think, is something that we really need to do.
And for me in particular, one thing that is important to me is breaking the stigma, particularly within the Black community, about therapy. There's a lot of stigma around what happens in this house stays in this house, or what happens in this body or in this mind stays in this mind. And so getting individuals who are minorities, particularly Black women, that's my focus, to say, hey, I'm going to give this a try, even though my grandmother might have said this is something that we don't do in our family. Like really breaking that down and trying something new for themselves, and then ultimately for their children and their children's children.
Yeah, it is such an important thing. And there's a lot of obstacles. I grew up in a very religious community, and so there's so many different
nuances that keep us away. And you know, it's time for us to really deprogram and restructure now that we have the information. You know, and our grandparents and leaders from before were doing the best with what they had, but we're in a new space now, so it's an opportunity for us to do things differently.
Absolutely. Well, Cherise, I just want to thank you so much for being here today. It has been so wonderful. I'm so impressed by the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And I am going to be buying the coloring book as soon as we're done.
Okay.
Because that sounds very fun to me and exciting and wonderful.
I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. This is also great. I don't get to sometimes be on the other side of the question, so that was kind of cool to have that experience. And I'm always available and here to support Care for Creatives and any other things that you think would be beneficial for us to collaborate on. That would mean so much to me.
Thank you so much. This has been just wonderful. And thank you all for joining us. I'd like to give a special thank you to Mayor Muriel Bowser and Director LaToya Foster for making this possible. For more information on Care for Creatives, visit www.creativeaffairsdc.com.